Hello, everyone, and welcome to the most must-hear fantasy football podcast in all the land, the Fantasy Griddle. Check out our website for waiver wire ads, rest of season rankings, and more on www.fantasygriddle.com. Make sure that you follow us on Twitter at Fantasy Griddle and that you've liked our Facebook page as well. All right, it's time for Buy or Sell. All right, my first guy that I'm going to sell is quarterback Deshaun Watson. As good as he was last season, he just really had a 7-game sample size that I really wasn't buying into. He only played well in 5 of those games when you look back at the game log. He played well against the Patriots, the Titans, Chiefs, Browns, Seahawks, but all of those past defenses were towards the bottom of the league. 32nd ranked, 28th, 27th, 17th, and 6th. During that 5-game span, he also averaged over a turnover per game, and he looked awful on Sunday. He looked uncomfortable as hell. He completed just 50% of his passes, had 2 turnovers. I said he was my most overvalued quarterback coming into the season, and that remains to be the case. He does actually have a soft schedule coming up, but expecting superstar numbers from this guy, it's just not going to happen. The defenses have caught up, and I am definitely looking to sell Deshaun Watson if I can.
Oh, coming at me. First take. I like it.
Got to do it.
Oh, man. I have to say my faith has been tested this week for sure in Deshaun Watson. However, the way I'm looking at it is this is week 1, first of all. Number 2, he played New England at home, and you give Bill Belichick almost a full year to prepare for this guy. I think they had the perfect game plan. Nobody was open for him. He had very little protection, which, that's not an excuse. He's going to continue to have a bad offensive line. But I do think that better times are ahead for Watson. I'm not selling Watson just yet.
Next guy I have up is Jimmy Garoppolo, and he is a buy for me. 7th-ranked quarterback last year from Week 13 on. He lost Goodwin in this game. He played a very strong Vikings defense in Minnesota. He's having increasing rapport with Kittle, increasing rapport with the rookie Pettis. He just lost his starting running back. Would you guys give this guy some slack? He's about to carve up an atrocious Lions team at home that has already given up on the head coach, Matt Patricia. He's got the Chiefs coming up, who Rivers just lit up. He's got the Chargers coming up that Mahomes just lit up. He's got Arizona. He's got Green Bay. Add this man.
I'm also on board with buying Jimmy Garoppolo. I came around to him late in the preseason after watching him, and I think he's a really smooth quarterback. He reads the field well. He just looks like a natural out there. And, first week, he had a real tough matchup, still played admirably against the Vikings. And if you watch the game, you could tell that he's the real deal for sure. So if you can, buy low right now, someone who's trying to sell Jimmy G, who's actually not their starting quarterback at the moment, make a play for Jimmy G. All right, Pete, so you gave me a sell and a buy at quarterback. Now let me give you my guys here. So at quarterback, my buy is Andrew Luck. And Andrew Luck, he was a player this year that was completely dogged in drafts, went super late. Like I said in the previous show, I got him in the 13th round in one of my drafts, and he looks really good. He's moving around the way he used to. He looks athletic. He's showing off that big arm. I think he does have some timing to work on, but he's also got some weapons. So I'm looking at Luck as a buy here. I do project him to be a top 5 quarterback rest of the way. So if you have somebody who's got Andrew Luck and maybe isn't his starting quarterback and you're looking for somebody, I'd make a play at Luck.
Totally agree. Luck alleviated a lot of concerns on Sunday, throwing the ball 53 times, threw a few touchdowns, got both tight ends involved. Needs to connect with T.Y. Hilton more, but in general, for a first game back after being out as long as he was, I think it was very encouraging, and definitely have to view Andrew Luck as, a back-end quarterback one. I would definitely buy Andrew Luck if I needed help at quarterback.
All right, so my sell is a guy who you've actually been pretty vocal about this recently, Pitash, is Carson Wentz. And we warned you in the preseason. I was not very high on him. It's a massive injury that he's trying to come back from in a little over 9 months. The guy tore his ACL and his LCL. That's a full knee reconstruction. He's coming back trying to play quarterback. And by all reports, it keeps getting pushed out. This reminds me of Andrew Luck last year, where they're like, oh yeah, he's going to play. Don't worry, he'll be ready. Next thing you know, he misses the entire season. The Eagles have Nick Foles. He didn't look great in this game, but I'm looking at the schedule here. I'm predicting the earliest possible return for Wentz is week 4 when they play the Titans. The next couple weeks, they've got Tampa and then the Colts. He's already out for this week. He hasn't been practicing at all, so this week he's definitely out. Colts, they're going to roll. He's got Tennessee and then the Vikings. So, there is a scenario here where he doesn't improve. And you mentioned this a little while ago, Pitesh, that Rodney Harrison in the pregame was saying how Wentz was not moving around well. He didn't look good in the pregame warm-up. And Rodney Harrison knows football. He absolutely is a guy you can trust. And looking at the schedule here, there is a scenario where he is held out till after their bye week in week 9, which would give him a week 10 turnaround. And if you're stashing him on your bench while you could be picking up other players, I would not be afraid to cut bait with Carson Wentz right now, totally drop him. Or if you have an ISLAR, obviously use that. Or if you can sell him to somebody else who maybe is going to pay that value like he's a top 5 quarterback or going to be an MVP, I would take that opportunity now. What do you think about that, Pitesh?
Yeah, regarding Rodney Harrison not loving the way he was looking, can you say that I had that first on Fantasy Griddle?
You did have it first. However, I watched it live, so I was right there with you.
Okay, all right. Well, yeah, I had it first on. Okay, so yeah, Wentz, doubtful for this week, has yet to be cleared for contact, moving around very gingerly. The Eagles are coming off a Super Bowl winning epic season. There's no rush to get right back again to the Super Bowl. He is the future of this franchise. They're going to wait until he's 100% ready to go. They're not going to send him back out there like the Redskins with RG3 and ruin this guy's career. They're going to make sure he's ready to go. Nick Foles is going to be the starter here until Wentz is absolutely totally comfortable playing in the pocket and having rushers come at him and go at his legs. They don't want to send him out there prematurely. I would definitely look to sell Wentz if anybody's looking to buy him. I don't know that you'll find anybody that is, and if I was in a crunch for a roster spot, I would seriously consider dropping him. I think you're better off rostering, more running backs and wide receivers. You can only play one quarterback in most leagues, and most likely you're going to be able to get by just fine streaming guys as opposed to hanging on to Carson Wentz and hoping that he comes back healthy at some point. All right, next up for buy or sell, we have running backs. My first running back that I'm going to buy, and he did not have a great week 1, is Alex Collins from the Baltimore Ravens. He scored a touchdown on Sunday. He's still the starter. Kenneth Dixon is done. He's on injured reserve. He's not coming back. Buck Allen has shown that he cannot be the lead guy. He's not going to take away sustained work from Alex Collins. This was a blowout against Buffalo. It was not a normal game, totally different game script. And Alex Collins had that fumble in the first half that they went to Buck Allen, but that's not going to be the norm. Buck Allen cannot handle the lead job. He's shown that in the past. That's why Collins took over in the first place last season. At some point, they're going to lean on Alex Collins, and I think that's going to start this Thursday night against the Bengals. He scored 6 touchdowns in the final 7 games of last season, and I guarantee you, Alex Collins is going to score a touchdown this Thursday night against the Bengals. That's how confident I am in this man.
Oh, it's a hot take right there. I can hear that grizzle.
Mark it down now. Give yourself those 6 fantasy points for a touchdown. He's going in.
Oh, boy. All right, well, I don't know how I can follow that one, but Collins, let's just respond. So Collins, I agree with you. I think he's a buy. I think I also underestimated him in the preseason a little bit. Looking at the backfield, I was concerned in the preseason about that split, and I did see Kenneth Dixon playing in the preseason. He was an absolute beast. The guy was a hoss, and now he's out for the year. So that's going to open up a big opportunity here for Collins. Buck Allen is really a receiving back. He's going to get a few carries here and there, but primarily going to be in the game on receiving downs. And I agree. He didn't have a huge game this week, but that game got out of hand. They kind of fed Kenneth Dixon at the end of the game because they didn't want to waste Collins' tread. But moving forward, I can see him getting a massive workload. And if you can buy Collins at half price or at any kind of discount, it's not a bad investment right now.
For sure. The running back that I'm going to sell, and this should be no surprise to anybody, is Devonta Freeman. And Duncan, who is smarter than us? Who nailed this guy being a total bust more than Fantasy Griddle?
Hey, it's week 1, but I still think he's a bust.
It's over for Greg Olsen, just like we said, and it's over for Devonta Freeman, just like we said. Ignore the Joe Mixon prediction. That didn't happen.
Yeah, who said that?
There's some idiot in your league who will still think that Devonta Freeman is an RB1. Find out who this person is and fleece the shit out of them. Every year, Coleman chips away at Freeman's workload. Over the past 3 seasons, Coleman is rushing the ball more and more, and he's catching more and more passes out of the backfield. It continued last Thursday night as Coleman had 10 touches and a touchdown compared to Devonta Freeman's 9 touches. Also, Devonta Freeman, he's already banged up with a knee injury. He's missing practice time. He had knee injuries all of last season that he opted not to get surgery on. This whole Atlanta offense is a powder keg waiting to explode. Ship this man off your team before the value tanks. Get rid of him.
Yeah, I'm on board too. You know, I'm not going to go too much into Devonta Freeman there because we've talked about him at length, but also see him as a sell. If you do have someone in your league that's buying, definitely look into trading away Devonta Freeman.
Trade him for Tevin Coleman.
Yeah, at this point, it's a pretty even trade. I mean, they're both getting pretty much the same workload, and Coleman has less tread on the tire. So I probably prefer. I don't know. Would you do that? What would you do? What would you do?
I would do that deal. I would do that deal.
Taking Coleman?
I think Coleman's going to be better this year, and I don't know. He's more durable. He doesn't.
It sounds crazy because when you think about it, the previous value, but moving forward, I do think that Coleman's probably the better option. So, all right. So for my buy, I'm going to go to Denver and name Royce Freeman, who I believe is the most talented back in this backfield and somebody that the fantasy community was clamoring to get their hands on over the last few weeks. His ADP jumped multiple rounds leading up to the draft. I took him in a league in the 4th round. I actually saw somebody in our league picked him in like the 3rd round. And now everyone wants to jump ship. People are going bananas for Phillip Lindsay, who I do think Phillip Lindsay is a long play. I think he's going to be a good flex player moving forward. However, Phillip Lindsay is not going to continue to get 17 carries a week. Royce Freeman is the guy. He is going to get a lot of carries here. He's going to be the workhorse. He's a powerful, talented guy. And I think if you can get your hands on him right now, it would be a very wise move considering Royce Freeman owners, depending on where they drafted him, they could be freaking out and he still got high value. They might be thinking that they're selling high when in reality, you're buying low. So I would look at Royce Freeman in Denver. Denver is going to continue to run 30 plus times a game. And I do see Royce Freeman probably ending up with 20 plus carries in short order.
Yeah. Who saw Phillip Lindsay coming, out of this Denver backfield? I don't think anybody did. But for the most part, I think he's replacing Devontae Booker. He's catching balls out of the backfield. He's giving the carries supplementally to Royce Freeman. My viewpoint on Royce Freeman has definitely changed a little bit since the draft. He's definitely dropped down a few pegs, but I still think he's a very valuable asset and somebody that I would definitely be trying to add as an RB2 by anybody that's trying to deal him. The workload is going to be there. He's still the starting running back, but Phillip Lindsay is going to be more involved. But I don't see him taking over for Royce Freeman, and I just kind of see him getting the work Devontae Booker was going to get. Devontae Booker, he could be inactive next week. Who knows?
All right, so I'm going to cheat here. We were supposed to do one per position, but I'm going to give my second buy, and that is Sony Michel out of the New England backfield. The Patriots are doing what they do a lot of times where they try to copy other teams that are having success in some facet. It seems that for years they've been trying to copy the Saints and pick up that pass catching back. First it was Darren Sproles, and now they're looking to copy Alvin Kamara with Sony Michel. Hasn't played yet. He's had a knee issue. It's been depleting his value all preseason. However, this guy coming out of college was a first-round pick. He was one of the most talented, some say the most talented draft, besides Saquon Barkley, who people are labeling as a generational freak talent. There are people in the expert community or players that are saying that Sony Michel is actually the most ready running back coming out of school. So if you can get your hands on Michel at this time, I would absolutely do that. Everyone is looking to sell before even seeing him play the field. Burkhead could be out. He had a concussion this week. Guy got 18 carries, so that's obviously going to open up an opportunity if Michel can make it on the field. Burkhead didn't practice on Wednesday. It's not looking good for him to play if he's still in that concussion protocol over the next couple of days. Jeremy Hill, torn ACL. So all the pieces are coming together here for Sony Michel to come in and take control of this backfield even sooner than we were hoping. He did play the preseason. He is a rookie. We haven't seen him, but this is the perfect guy and the perfect time to buy Sony Michel. If ever you're going to make a play for a guy that could change your season, this is the guy. And I'm telling you, if you can make a deal right now where you can acquire Sony Michel, it will pay off in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, with Burkhead having the concussion and the possibility of him missing the game this week, the window to buy Sony Michel at a decent price is closing pretty rapidly, because if Burkhead doesn't play and Michel plays well, then you're not going to be able to afford Sony Michel. You're not going to be able to acquire him once he plays well, in my opinion. And the other thing to just keep an eye on is if Burkhead is going to play, if he's recovered from that concussion, Michel may sit out again. So these two are very intertwined. Their values are very intertwined. So just keep an eye on that. If Burkhead plays, there's a chance Michel won't. And if Burkhead has to sit out with that injury, there's a good chance that Michel will play and will be the lead ball carrier.
All right, so for my sells, I'm going to name two guys again. I'm cheating here at running back, but there were a bunch of guys I wanted to talk about. This one's interesting, and it's going to affect you, Pete Tash. My sell is James Conner. And right now, I think you can do either one. You could buy or you could sell James Conner because he's a great player. But for a lot of people who have picked up James Conner, he all of a sudden is a very, very valuable commodity. And there's a lot of people that want to get their hands on James Conner. And, following the philosophies of economics, you're buying low and selling high. Sometimes selling high isn't a bad thing if he might have continued success, but that value is going to bring you back something huge in return. So if you don't need a running back 2 and you're already set at running back and you've got Conner on your bench, I would look to improve your roster elsewhere. Trade him for somebody like a wide receiver 2 and stack your team more than you already have it. On the other side, I'm not against keeping him or even buying him. But for me, I'm going to name James Conner as a sell just because I think right now you can get so much for James Conner, and we really don't know what's going to happen with Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah, so I know we talked on the last podcast about how I have that, that feeling that after each game that passes without Le'Veon Bell, we're getting closer and closer to the game when he is going to show up. And when that time is, I don't know. I don't know if it'll be week 4. I don't know if it'll be week 10. No one knows. But whatever timeline we're on, every game that he misses is one game closer to him playing. And I feel like the value is going to be creeping up steadily, and it's going to have an inverse effect on James Conner. His value is at an all-time high right now because of the game he just played on Sunday and because the situation is so bleak with Le'Veon Bell. But as we get through the season and that diminishing role is becoming clearer and clearer when Le'Veon Bell is going to come back, I'm going to wait until James Conner has a bad game or 2 bad games or, 3 average games or something like that. I can't deal for him right now where he's, setting the world on fire. But I think there's going to be a sweet spot where there's going to be enough interest in Le'Veon Bell coming back and enough interest in trading away James Conner to get something for him. And it's just going to make a lot of sense for that Bell owner to trade for James Conner probably around, week 6 or 7 if he's coming back week 10. And I think that's going to be your best chance to get a good deal on James Conner.
Yeah, it's really an interesting situation from a contractual perspective as well as a fantasy perspective. Another guy here I'm going to name as a sell, and I think this might be an unpopular opinion as well, and that guy is Ezekiel Elliott. And leading up to the preseason, I was very concerned about Zeke. In fact, I didn't really talk about him too much on the show, but I didn't have any picks in the top 5. If I did, Zeke was not off my board, but I was clearly discounting him. And I just couldn't take him at that rate. The reason for it is, number one, he's had a lot of injuries on the offensive line. Travis Frederick has this crazy freak illness that is, I don't know exactly where he's at right now, but it's looking like he could be potentially out for the entire season. Also had a couple other injuries on the offensive line. So that hurts Zeke. More than that, though, is just Dallas is just absolutely a wasteland for talent on offense. Aside from Zeke and Dak, they've got nobody. They have no tight end. They have really no receivers that are worth noting. This guy Gallup, I think he could be good in the long run. Cole Beasley's not a bad little receiver, but you can't have nobody else to be on your side on offense, or else the other team is just going to stack the box every single time and force you to beat them through the air. And this week, Dallas looked terrible. If I had Ezekiel Elliott right now, I'd absolutely be looking to sell him and moving down for someone a little bit lower in the running back one ranks. Players I would take for Zeke straight up right now: Melvin Gordon. I would take Kareem Hunt. I wouldn't take Christian McCaffrey. Is tough. Jordan Howard. I think I would take Jordan Howard and Joe Mixon.
Yikes. I mean, the situation in Dallas on their offense is so bad, but I would almost consider Ezekiel Elliott, for anybody that's thinking of trading him, I would be all over that as a buy, just because as bad as the Cowboys offense is, his workload is so strong. He's going to get so many carries each week. And if 15 carries for 69 yards and 1 touchdown, if that's a bad week for Ezekiel Elliott, I am signing up for that all season long as an RB1. If there's somebody in your league that is thinking about trading Ezekiel Elliott for your current RB1 or RB2 that's not nearly wasn't nearly as highly ranked in the preseason, I would strongly consider that deal, because I think Ezekiel Elliott is a lock as a top 3 or 4 running back this year, just because of the workload alone, no matter how bad this Dallas Cowboys offense is. He is the bright spot, and he's going to get his touches.
Well, we'll have to agree to disagree on this one. It could go either way. You never know. But for me, I've seen a lot of red flags in this offense right now. So I'm trying to dip out and take the value that I can before it's too late. Because if he has a few more bad games, his value really is going to crash.
Well, you cheated and named an extra buy and sell. So I'm not ready to get into a full-blown discussion about these two, but I will briefly mention something that was very concerning for the Titans offense, and that was that at some point they shifted to leaning on Dion Lewis in the run game, and I wasn't really concerned about that because of the game flow and stuff like that. You know, middle of the game, tough to judge what the roles are. But when they got inside the 5-yard line, you would think that they would bring in Derrick Henry, their huge, monstrous running back that could easily just bowl over the entire defensive line and get into the end zone. They stuck with Dion Lewis, and he got the touchdown. If Derrick Henry's not going to be getting the goal line touches and the red zone touches, then what are you using him for? If he has value in your league and you could trade him straight up for Dion Lewis, I would do that. Or I would just trade Derrick Henry in general. He's a sell for me, and Dion Lewis is certainly a buy.
Dion Lewis, I'm absolutely buying. And Henry, I really wasn't really buying him from the start. So I'd also be selling him here, looking like he's going to be very dependent on the game script. And if he's not, you're right, if he's not getting all those goal line touches, then it's definitely going to take away from him. It looks like they're going to be leaning much more heavily on Dion Lewis moving forward.
Yeah, I did not expect that going into week 1, and I certainly, the entire benefit of owning Derrick Henry was to get those touchdowns, to get those goal line touches, and if he's not getting those, then he's really not holding up his end of the bargain on your fantasy team. That's why you drafted him in the first place. Next, I'm going to get into a sell for me, which is a wide receiver named Amari Cooper. I think you guys have probably heard of him. People may say it's only one game. It's too early to judge. It's not only one game. It's 15 games now. He caught 1 pass on Monday night. And going back to last season, he played 14 games and had a terrible season last year. In a season where the Raiders said they were going to feature him and where they knew the importance of getting him off to a hot start, he had 3 targets. That is trash. I don't know what the problem is. I don't know if it's Derek Carr. I don't know if it's the play calling, but he's not seeing the targets, and when he is, he's not catching the passes. He caught just 50% of his targets last season. He had just 680 yards and just 7 touchdowns. And keep in mind, there was a huge fucking outlier last season where he put up 11 catches, 210 yards, and 2 touchdowns in 1 game. And I remember that because I played against him that week. But without that, he had an awful season, even worse than it was with it. Sell Amari Cooper. I don't even know if you can get anything for him, but sell him for what you can. This guy is not right. I don't know if it's the offense or him, but for, going on a year plus now, he just hasn't been productive.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. I mean, you see him in the uniform and making some of these plays, and he's incredibly athletic. You would think that they would want to target him more. They were saying all preseason they were going to target him more. And this week they give the ball to Jared Cook like 10 times. So I don't understand. Maybe it was part of the game plan, but it is definitely troubling that they're not getting the ball in the hands of their playmaker. Personally, I'd probably be looking at I'd consider buying him, because I think people might be trying to jump ship real quick. I think for Amari Cooper, there are better days ahead. So I'm not going to be totally selling Cooper at this point.
Okay, and that'll lead me into my buy candidate for wide receiver. Not really a whole lot to say here. It's Chris Hogan of the Patriots. Chris Hogan is healthy right now, and I think this offense is going to kind of be a little bit sluggish until they get Edelman back in week 5. He only caught one pass in week 1, but I'm not really concerned about that. Brady likes to spread the ball around. Hogan is going to have his games where he doesn't perform well, but he's also going to have, monster games mixed in, and also just very capable wide receiver 2 games in there as well. And I think when Edelman comes back and it takes some of that attention away from the defense on Hogan, that he's going to start performing consistently well. I don't know if it's going to happen before then, and certainly not this weekend against the Jaguars, but I would definitely look at the buy Chris Hogan. We know what he is. He does have some durability issues from time to time, and he's not a world beater. He's not going to be, one of the top wide receivers in the league, but he's certainly very capable. He was a wide receiver, a top 10 wide receiver, through the first 7 or 8 games last year. His abilities are so great that, I wouldn't get thrown off by that one catch game last week, and I would try to add Hogan where he's available.
Yeah, I'm also on board with adding Hogan. I think I'd probably wait until after this week and buy him at an even lower price. He's going to be going up against the Jaguars, so that's going to be a tough matchup for him. And another thing that is tough for Hogan is that he's going to be facing the number 1 corners most weeks now, so it's not going to be sneaking up on anybody. Could be an issue for him moving forward. He does have Julian Edelman coming back, and Philip Dorsett was pretty heavily involved this week. But if the price is right, I would definitely be looking to add or to buy Hogan. And if you do own Hogan, definitely hang on and see if you can get at least a good week out of him before you make any moves. At the wide receiver position, my buy candidate is DJ Moore. Talked about him in the preseason. He's one of the most athletic players coming out of this rookie draft class. Extremely explosive. This week, he only played a handful of snaps. Ron Rivera said they're not going to rush him along. He is a young player, and I think that they're very careful with that. Didn't have any targets in the game. He did have 1 carry for 3 yards, but really wasn't involved at all. The thing with Moore, though, is they're kind of going to be forced to play him, I think, because Olsen is down, which is it's putting more pressure on the offense to have some pass catchers out there. So I think DJ Moore gets on the field a lot more starting the next few weeks. If you recall last year, Juju Smith-Schuster started the season pretty slowly. He also was brought on pretty quick, a really young player. They don't want to overexpose them to the NFL too soon. So I think Rivera is smart here, but I think he also is going to be forced to put DJ Moore in the lineup. Just watching him from the preseason, this guy jumps off the tape. He's extremely fast. He's explosive. He looks like a natural pass catcher, excellent route runner, the number 1 rated wide receiver coming out of the draft. So if you see an owner who has DJ Moore and doesn't need him, he's not playing him, I'd make an offer right now, see what you can get for him. I actually offered Duke Johnson to a running back starved owner in my league for DJ Moore. It was denied because for some reason nobody likes to make deals. I thought that was a pretty good offer, but everybody wants to win, right, Pitash?
Everybody wants to win, and if you want to win, avoid DJ Moore. You
don't like rookies. You don't like rookies in general. Why don't you like DJ Moore?
I don't like DJ Moore because of his situation. He played 17 snaps on Sunday. He was 4th in line for snaps and targets amongst wide receivers. I don't think the Greg Olsen injury will affect him that much because they're 2 totally different positions. They're going to plug in their next tight end. They can't play DJ Moore at tight end. They can't place any other wide receiver at tight end. I don't think it's going to get him on the field anymore. And I think that Cam Newton really struggles to get multiple wide receivers involved. I think it's going to be hard enough for him to get Devin Funchess involved and Christian McCaffrey involved. That was a struggle in week 1 already. I can't see him supporting his fourth wide receiver, and I don't think DJ Moore is going to move up the depth chart anytime soon. So maybe end of season, maybe mid-season, if he's doing something, add him. But right now, you don't need to add him. Did he even have a target on Sunday? Maybe one.
No, he didn't.
He didn't,
dude.
So I would.
You're gonna eat your words in this one, Pete Dash. I'm telling you.
I would wait and see on DJ Moore. There's no need to get him right now. There's no need to even take him off your waiver wire if he's sitting there. Let him sit there until he starts producing, and then you can add him.
See, that's the thing. You can't wait until he starts producing because at that point it's too late.
Getting a target or 4 or 5 targets, he's not going to.
This is the perfect time to buy him. His value is so low. You're the perfect example. You don't even think he's going to be playing the next few weeks. I will mark my words. The next 5 by week 5, DJ Moore is going to be an every week startable wide receiver 3.
Oh God. I'll miss the boat. I've missed the boat before. I've missed it on.
You always miss the
Beckham.
boat. Don't be like him. You missed the boat on wide receiver or rookie receivers. You got to take a chance on these guys.
Roster spots on wide receivers that aren't going to produce for the whole season as well. So I've had it both ways. I've missed on a lot of guys, but I've also not taken the bait on a lot of guys too.
All right, fair enough. So that was my buy. My sell is going to be my sell of the week at wide receiver. I can't do it. I was going to say Tyreek Hill. And he's too nasty. He's too nasty. I mean, his value is retarded right now, dude. You know?
But what are you going to get? Tyreek Hill might be a top 20 player.
I know. That's the thing. I can't sell him. So let me find a new sell. My sell at the wide receiver position is Randall Cobb of the Green Bay Packers. Had a big week this week, 24.7 points. He had 10 targets, caught 9 of them for 142 yards and a touchdown. He had a really long touchdown, and he's one of those guys that can put up big games. He's a really explosive wide receiver. So if he gets one of those long touchdowns, it's going to give you a good week. However, there's a few things going on here. First off, I don't think he's going to do this every week, and his value is clearly very high at the moment, or pretty high. But you've got Geronimo Allison there. You've also got Devontae Adams. And more importantly, now you've got a hobbled Aaron Rodgers, who he's hurt his knee. They're not saying whether or not he's going to be playing next week. So if he doesn't play and Cobb has a bad week, that value is going to take a tumble. And in fantasy, it's like the stock market, right? A stock goes up and a stock goes down, and that volatility can swing wildly up or down this early in the season. So you see a guy like Cobb, who I don't think he's a bad player. I just don't see him being, a wide receiver 2 or putting up 24 points a week. So if you have Randall Cobb on your team and you don't really need wide receiver, you're looking to add a running back or something, I'd look to dangle Cobb at an owner who could afford to give up a running back for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think Cobb's value is very tied to Aaron Rodgers. If Rodgers were to be out this week or for any amount of time, the value of Cobb and all the receivers in Green Bay tanks. So I would keep a close eye on that. I actually, I like Randall Cobb if Rodgers is healthy this season, but I don't know that I'd be looking to buy or sell him. It really depends on the health of Aaron Rodgers. Okay, so looking at the tight ends for this past week, Duncan, aside from Rob Gronkowski, can you tell me who the top 3 tight ends were in terms of fantasy points?
Without looking, I'm going to say Jared Cook.
You probably can, yeah.
No, I'm not looking. I swear. Jared Cook.
Yep.
Will Dissly.
Yep.
And who's the other one? I can't get the other one. Who's the other one?
Eric Ebron. So we're talking about Jared Cook, Will Dissly, and Eric Ebron.
Just like we wrote it up, right?
Exactly. 3 guys that were readily available on waivers were 3 out of your top 4 tight ends not named Rob Gronkowski. And my point here is that there's so many tight ends that are so closely linked in terms of their production that they're going to give you. And that player pool just got even smaller when we lose Greg Olsen and we lose Delaney Walker. And Travis Kelce, for him to only have 1 target on Sunday, it just kind of shows you he's going to have those weeks this season. There's a rookie quarterback. He only connected really with one wide receiver on the field, and that was Tyreek Hill. And he kind of leaned on him, but that was all he really did was connect with Tyreek Hill on big passes. He didn't look Travis Kelce's way. He's going to have these weeks where he's not a superstar, and I'd much rather move him and sell Travis Kelce and get a running back or wide receiver in return if I can. Tight end just doesn't, unless you have Rob Gronkowski, tight end is just not going to bring back the same consistent value week in and week out. It's going to be different guys at the top each week. It's going to be the Jared Cooks. It's going to be the Will Disleys. Some weeks it's going to be other guys, Kyle Rudolph, George Kittle. It's not going to be the same guys each week aside from Rob Gronkowski. Trade Travis Kelce for what you can get.
Interesting take there. I don't like drafting Kelce. I didn't like drafting him as early as he was, so I'm not personally invested in the situation here. But if I did have Kelce, I would definitely entertain offers here. I think he's obviously going to put up big games, but you're right. I mean, there's so many good tight ends there, and there's so many guys that are split apart by not that many points. You absolutely could get some value for Kelce right now, and then make do with some of these guys from the waiver wire, or even pick up a guy who, maybe you could get a 2-for-1 deal and pick up another tight end in that trade.
Yeah, and the one tight end that I'd be looking to buy is a tight end that, I mentioned that Eric Ebron was one of the top tight ends, and it could kind of scare the Jack Doyle owner a little bit to see Eric Ebron coming in there and performing well at tight end. Jack Doyle did not have a great line on Sunday. He fumbled, and that cost him some points. Ended the day with 7.5 points, but he was second among all tight ends in targets with 10, and he was second among all tight ends in receptions with 7. I think the numbers are going to be there. Touchdowns you can't depend on every week, but they will be there for Doyle with regularity with Andrew Luck back, and with getting those target numbers and those reception numbers. I think he's a guy that you should be targeting a tight end and looking to buy Jack Doyle.
You took one of my guys, P-Tash, just like you took him in the draft, you bastard.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, it's
although
okay.
I think you did out pretty well getting George Kittle.
Exactly. It's okay because I took George Kittle from you a couple picks later, and he is my player to buy this week. George Kittle. Thank you, P-Tash. God, I didn't know about him really, and I started paying attention, and boy, he is a talented guy, and he got 9 targets this week. And, if we mention targets a lot in the show, if you're not familiar with it, it's the amount of times that a quarterback throws the ball to a receiver. So pretty basic. He was targeted, and this guy was targeted 9 times. That was the 4th most, or tied for the 3rd most on the week, behind Jared Cook, Ertz, and Doyle, who had 10 targets. So when you're looking at a player, especially at the tight end position, you want a guy who's going to be throwing the ball and have a lot of opportunities to make plays. So you're looking at those targets, and you want to see consistent targets. So week 1, this is very encouraging to see Kittle come out here, get 9 targets, threw up 90 yards, had 5 catches. He also dropped a pass that should have been a 60-yard touchdown. He also had another pass in the end zone that was tipped away. So this guy could have had a massive, massive week where we would be talking about him as by far the number 1 ad off the waiver wire. Instead, he has a few bounces not go his way, and he still puts up a good line here. So if you're looking at getting a tight end, if you see Kittle out there, which, at this point, I don't see that happening. He looks to be 89% owned, so you'll have to make a play for him in the trade market. But if you can get a guy who, maybe he's got Kittle on his bench, doesn't really use him, doesn't see the value in him, definitely make a play for Kittle. And I think you're going to have a season-long top 10 tight end on your hands.
Couldn't agree more. I was a huge Kittle fan in the preseason, and the only reason I didn't take Kittle was because I took Doyle. One time he wasn't there for me, and the other time he was, and I just went Doyle.
It's funny because we were talking about trading guys the other day, and you wouldn't do it, and now I don't think I would do it. And I don't know. I think there are 2 players that I was high on them in the preseason and now kind of flipping on them. But either one, I think they're both going to be great tight ends this year.
I think we're going to run into that situation a lot this year where they're constantly shifting in who looks better, whose value's better. But they're both, in my eyes, locks to be top 10 tight ends, especially with those injuries being factored in. These guys are reliable, and they're the focal points of their offense. They're leading their team in targets, and they're being looked at early and often by their quarterbacks. Love Doyle, love Kittle this season.
And on the sell side for the tight end position, I'm going to name a guy that I've been hating on all preseason, probably sick of hearing about him, but Jimmy Graham. This guy taken very early in drafts this year, and he's a player that I'm just really not very high on in this offense. He was only targeted 4 times. He had 2 catches for 8 yards. It's more important to have consistency at tight end. If you're going to have a guy that if he doesn't put up a touchdown that week, he's going to give you a goose egg, it's not worth it. And for me, that he put up 1.8 points this week, that could very well lose you the week. And if you're getting multiple weeks like that from Graham, you're screwed. Right now, he's still got pretty high value. I would deal him for somebody, like a Kittle. I would absolutely trade him for Kittle and Doyle right now. Or you can probably get more than that, but I'm totally bailing ship on Jimmy Graham if I have him on my team.
Yeah, there's no reason to think that Jimmy Graham is going to happen in Green Bay. He has slowed down tremendously since his days with the Saints. He's not the same player anymore. Aaron Rodgers has never relied on the tight end. He had Jared Cook, a couple of years ago, and Cook was okay, but he's just never really relied on the tight end. And I think Greg hit on this in his article a few weeks ago. He's never really had a tight end like Jimmy Graham, but we're talking about a diminished shell of himself, Jimmy Graham, that's not the Pro Bowler he once was. He labors to stay healthy. He doesn't put up nearly the volume that he used to. And if Rodgers is banged up, I don't know that helps Jimmy Graham at all. And if he goes down and Kaiser takes over, I think this whole offense is going to be a wreck. But I would certainly look to move on from Jimmy Graham. His terrible game on Sunday, maybe you want to wait until he plays well in a game, but I certainly wouldn't rely on Jimmy Graham to be a stud tight end this season. And like you said, I think Jack Doyle and George Kittle are certainly better values. And if you can get them and another piece for Graham, I would definitely do that.
Yeah, and I didn't realize how old he is. He's 31 years old, and he has had a bunch of injuries. So I think it was stupid for people to take him in the 5th round or whatever he was going at this year. And if you did, I would try to get out from underneath.
All right, that's going to do it for us here on the Fantasy Griddle podcast. Check out our website, fantasygriddle.com. Please remember to follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Fantasy Griddle. If you follow us on Twitter, you can engage with us directly and ask us questions directly on there. We try to get back to people as quickly as possible, so make sure that you follow us on Twitter and shoot us a message on there. Duncan, do you have anything else before we sign off for the night?
Yeah, and wherever you're listening, make sure you hit that follow or subscribe button. And if you have the time to give the show a review, we really appreciate that. It'll help us grow the podcast. Coming up on the Griddle, we're going to be reviewing the rest of the Week 2 matchups. We'll get into a little bit of DFS talk, help you build that millionaire lineup in FanDuel or DFS. And also make sure you stay up to date on our blog. We're going to be posting a bunch of articles soon. Probably going to be doing some buy-sell stuff, a little bit of a 5 up, 5 down article. And if you have any ideas for something that you want us to write about or research, please leave a comment. Let us know what you want to hear. And thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time.